if you don't want to face the risk of, say, building a gaming PC yourself, but you want to experience all that the platform has to offer, well, I'll tell you what, stick around for this story because it could very well help you along your PC gaming journey. And it starts with this pre-built, the MSI AEGIS ZS 5DS. It was a Black Friday deal I ordered off of Amazon a while back, and it equaled a little to about 1100 USD altogether. That's with taxes and everything. It came with a copy of Dying Light 2, something I already have, and honestly, I didn't enjoy it quite much. I didn't finish the game, and I really didn't even include it in any of our benchmarks, but it also came bundled with the keyboard and mouse, both MSI branded, which after the savings were pretty much free. But should you buy a pre-built gaming PC in 2025? One similar to this one here that we're going to break down and review and jump into how it all went, or one that is similarly priced, maybe with modern specs or a different CPU and GPU configuration. But essentially, after unboxing the MSI AEGIS 5DS, I noticed that the tempered glass made the case overall stand out really well, just that overall premium, metal build. And also in the back here, the cable management was put together really well. No arguments here. This is about as close to how I would route these cables in this case if I had built this system. That also is attributed to the way, everything was wired in the front here of the case. It comes with a total of 6 fans, so there's 3, looks like about 120 millimeter fans here in the front of the case, and then on top we have 220 millimeter fans on our AIO, and then 1 rear 120 millimeter fan in the back of the case. They're all RGB, as you'll see here in a second when I power the system on, but again, pretty clean in the inside, all MSI products for the most part. But jumping over into the specs for our graphics card, it is an add-in board variant, quite naturally. It is an MSI branded pre-built, so it's starting off with their MSI Mech 2X 6700XT. The Navi 22 12GB GDDR6 graphics card runs at 2000 megahertz, has about 2,560 cores, and it boosts clock frequency of up to 2,581 megahertz. That's slightly faster than the game clock speed, mind you. It also has 2 HDMI 2.1 input-output and has support for 3 DisplayPort 1.4a. The 6700XT was released in about March of 2021, and it sold for about 479 USD. Right now, you can pick the graphics card up, the 6700XT, regardless if it's a reference or an add-in board variant, for about $280 to $300. So it's still, it retains some of its value here after about 3 or 4 years of release. And then for our CPU, the 7nm 12-core 24-thread Zen 3 gaming monster has a 4.8 GHz boost clock frequency on all cores. And it's not the slightly faster XT variant, but still the second best chip available on the AM4 socket, which is still very much a viable platform, as we'll kind of jump in and discuss here, being that this motherboard is on the X570 chipset. And we could say, or one could upgrade the CPU to the XT variant, but for the most part, unless you really need those 16 cores on the 5950X, the 5900X is going to be a good buy for those who want to do more than just, say, play their games. For example, this system was designed to be my streaming setup or my dedicated streaming system. So of course I needed as many cores as possible. And not only that, but cores that could also run efficiently at fast speeds. But the 5900X released in about November of 2020, and that released for 549 USD, although during that time, the RYZEN 5000 CPUs were getting scalped at crazy prices. We had did a video about it way back when, talked about it on several live streams and what have you, but they were getting scalped like crazy. But right now you can pick up the 5900X standalone, say without it being paired with the motherboard, for about 200 USD. So still not a bad buy, if you will. It retains some of its value, and as we'll demonstrate here as we go further into the story of this pre-built, how that could help you with achieving fast, or big FPS gains and fast-paced games like Call of Duty, Overwatch, and even Marvel Rivals. And then for our memory, our storage, we're rocking a single 1TB NVMe M.2. And for our memory is 16 gigabytes of 3200 megahertz. Now, this is one of my biggest complaints, and I'll talk about it a little bit more in the pros and cons of this system, but 16 gigabytes is really not going to get it done for a system that's meant for streaming, let alone high-end 1080p gaming, to leverage that 12GB VRAM buffer that the 6700XT has. But the NVMe is a PCIe Gen 4, so we can take advantage of fast read and write speeds, and the power supply is about a 700 or 800 rated watt unit, so we could also upgrade to a faster GPU should, you know, the case necessitates. And then again, our cooler is a 240mm AIO, the MSI Mag Core Liquid 240R V2. So this is going to help keep that 5900X chilled, as you know, keeping those temperatures as low as possible while it's under a streaming / 1080p gaming load. So this is what you would want on the CPU. You could go air here to maybe save a little bit of money, as this AIO regularly sells for about 100 USD, somewhere along the lines there. And you can pick up a very capable CPU air cooler for a similar price. So that's just something to consider. It also boils down to your preference. The system is super quiet, so no complaints with the MSI Mag Core. And then to quickly go over the cost of this build, or a build equivalent, you're looking at about $800 depending on the chipset for your core components. That's your motherboard, your CPU, your power supply, or not your power supply, but your motherboard, your CPU, and RAM. I mean, you're looking at about 800 USD for those core components. And then with your case, your power supply unit, and your cooler, about another $150 to $200 or somewhere along the lines there. Again, this depends on your preference and the type of components you need to buy to achieve your targeted gaming experience. So altogether, if you wanted to price out this system and say leverage the used market, altogether you're looking at about 1,000 to 1,100 USD to build something equivalent, and you might be able to get more performance if you jump over to the used market and say pick up a slightly faster graphics card, maybe a 6800 XT or a 6900 XT, depending on the resolution and the refresh rate that you're targeting. This should be dependent on the type of monitor you're using. I will be using the 1440p monitor, the monitor we reviewed, the LG monitor we reviewed here on this channel. I will leave a link down in the description box below, or you can find it up here in the card somewhere. And now to go over some of the pros and cons before we jump into the performance, or how this system overall performs, say with boot times and just opening up different applications. Essentially, it was fast on the boot time or the load screen time, or just loading up different applications and games. I also jumped over into the BIOS, enabled the XMP of 3200 megahertz, and the system was fine, ran perfectly stable there. Check temperatures, and as you can see, our 1 terabyte NVMe drive is also shown on the BIOS, and everything essentially looked good over on this end. But some of the cons to the AEGIS, to this pre-built, to this MSI pre-built, is that the 16 gigabytes of DDR4 memory is simply not going to get it done, especially at higher end resolutions. And it's especially not adequate for streaming, because initially when I first fired the system up, games like Assassin's Creed Valhalla was taking anywhere up to 12 to 13 gigabytes of memory. And so once you factor in streaming and also still Windows running in the background, and even possibly, you know, the Streamlabs is what I use to stream, those are also taking up memory resources. So 16 gigabytes simply wouldn't be enough, and I wouldn't recommend it if you were pricing the system out of some, you know, if you were pricing the system out in terms of like similar hardware. But for the most part, 16 gigabytes isn't going to get it done. And so I had picked out an 32 gigabyte kit of RAM, XPG RAM, similar brand to the RAM that's already in this pre-built, but 32 gigabytes is simply, you know, the target here for my needs as a streaming system and as a dedicated gaming system. So that's one recommendation I would make, and that's going to add about $50 to $80 to your bill, because you can pick up a 32 gigabyte kit of DDR4, depending on if you want RGB or not, or if you want to, you know, just a simple kit. You can spend anywhere between $60 to $80, and sometimes RAM prices fluctuate a little bit. They go up, they come down. So you can also maybe take advantage of a bundle or a deal. And then the other con is the 1 terabyte NVMe M.2. 1 terabyte also simply not enough for a dedicated streaming system. I mean, games like Call of Duty and Fortnite and just what have you. I don't stream Fortnite, but just for example, and other games do take up a lot of space. And so 1 terabyte could fill up very fast here, depending on how many games you stream and just your overall catalog, or, you know, your taste and variety of games that you like to play. So 1 terabyte isn't enough. I would definitely recommend at least a 2 terabyte multi-drive, you know, system format or setup, and that way you can just future-proof we don't really like using that word, but you can at least future-proof your storage situation and not have to worry about installing and uninstalling games just to make space for updates or new installs, right? For new games that come out throughout the year. So definitely would want to add an additional storage drive, maybe another 1 terabyte storage drive, and that too would add to the cost of this system, being that they could range for anywhere between 60 to 80 USD. That's if you're going with an M.2 or even just a standard SSD, but I would recommend an M.2 just to take advantage of those PCIe transfer speeds, as what I would intend to do myself. But it's not all gloom and doom. Minus that, those are my 2 biggest complaints with this system at this price point. But some of the pros to this pre-built system, and that is the CPU. The 5900X is essentially maybe 1.5 to 2 generations behind. Again, you have the 5900XT, and you of course have RYZEN 7000 series CPUs out, but it's only about a 1 to 2 generations behind, so it's not that much slower than its successors. So there's still a lot of price to performance, still a lot of value in the 5900X as a 12-core, 24-thread gaming CPU. And then there's the 6700XT that came packaged with this system. It's a mid-range GPU, though 12 gigabytes of VRAM will enable you to play most games, almost all modern games, at 1080p indefinitely, in at least medium to high settings, depending on the game itself. But you could achieve those settings and also expect a decent FPS output. And you would also have flexibility to kind of adjust some of your settings. If you're playing a game like Red Dead Redemption 2, right, and it has a lot of different settings you can tweak to kind of really adjust the game to your specific, needs and interests, or how you want to perceive the game world. So it's really neat. But with the 6700XT, you would have those options. So it does come packaged with a fairly mid-range GPU. It has support for the latest FSR, that's AMD's Fidelity Super Resolution. So you can take advantages of, say, like frame generation and other AI features that could enhance your gameplay experience should you feel the need to. And then overall, another pro to this system is that it has like this high-end bravado with it, right? Like this MSI Prebuilt has premium, quality and feel to it. It's overall small form factor and footprint. It's going to fit perfectly on the streaming desk. I posted some, reels or shorts or whatever on my Instagram, and because of wherever TikTok goes, you want to follow me over there, and X as well, at SuperMetaTech. But shameful plug out the way, this system has a pretty decent, build and look to it. And with the RGB turned on in the dark time or nighttime, it also makes it stand out. I mean, it's super quiet, no complaints there. So there is a pro. It does have a nice premium feel to it. But it's here where the story kind of goes off the deep end a little bit. And that's initially when I was testing some games. I was playing Call of Duty Black Ops 6. I was jumping into multiplayer. Everything was running fine. Windows was updated, new drivers were installed. I was just testing the system out for the purposes of this video, and I started getting random crashes and FPS drops in the single digits, and then a green screen. This happened in every game I've played or tested on this system. It happened when I would jump into a match in Call of Duty Black Ops 6. Soon as the graphics card would say have to render an actual pixel or go under a full load, the screen would tap out, turn green, and just reboot. This also happened in Assassin's Creed Valhalla during the synthetic benchmark, and it also happened in the Unigine Heaven Valley benchmark. And if you can't pass or you can't run a system in Heaven Unigine Valley, that benchmark, then it's probably not very stable to begin with. But as soon as I would load up the Heaven benchmark, it would run single digit frames, stutter a little bit, and then instantly crash to a green screen. I did some research or some sleuthing online, tried to see if I could resolve the issue. I used DDU, I uninstalled the graphics drivers, reinstalled Windows, reinstalled all the games, and still had no luck. And that kind of defeats the purpose of this video, right? And that's, should you buy a pre-built gaming PC in 2025? One reason we preach pre-builts being a viable option for gamers who just want to jump into the platform is that it should be plug and play. You should be able to just unbox your system like I did, right? Plug in your HDMI cord, plug in your power supply unit, plug in your keyboard and your mouse, all your peripherals, install your games, connect to your Wi-Fi, and then install all your games, and you'd be good to go. You shouldn't have to make any other adjustments. It should just work out of the box. That is the experience that this pre-built should have offered me. And while I have the means to say troubleshoot this graphics card or troubleshoot this system, I would need to do it preferably on a system that doesn't rely on the graphics card for video out. So I'm going to eventually hook it up to the 12900K test bench, but not many PC gamers who are taking this route have that option. So that kind of makes this pre-built or this scenario an absolute fail. And one thing that sucks for me is that I have purchased this system quite a while back, so I'm unable to return it. The graphics card is essentially out of warranty, so I don't have that option to return it back to the store. So this is one of those scenarios where it's do as I say and not as I do, and that is, as soon as you purchase your products or your electronics, especially if it's like high-end gaming hardware, then you want to immediately test it out to make sure everything is working as it should. But being I don't have that option, I'm just going to try to troubleshoot this system myself and see if we can rule out the possibility that the 6700XT is faulty. And I kind of got screwed a little bit here on this pre-build, I must say. Not only do I have to up the memory, and I knew about it going in that only had 16 gigabytes of DDR4, but I said, hey, once we go back to streaming on the dedicated gaming channel, which you can also subscribe, I'll leave a link down in the description box below. If you're into longer gaming streams and just video game podcasts, definitely check that out down in the description box below. But you know what I mean? I wanted to just be able to demonstrate the simplicity of going with a pre-built system. But the graphics card, this MSI MEC2X being faulty, kind of denotes the feasibility of going with a pre-built, because these issues could arise and this could set you back if, you know what I mean, you want to return it back to the store or go with a quicker route and even get your money back. This could also discourage some entry-level or new gamers who are breaking through to the platform to want to take a risk and gamble. But this system is essentially a multi-purpose, ever-revolving or evolving experiment. I don't want this experience to discourage one from going with the pre-built. This could just be like a rare scenario where this graphics card is faulty, and even then, if you're ordering something off Amazon or you're going into the store, you can take it back and get your money back. But again, that just overall complicates the situation and takes away from the time you could be spending just playing and enjoying your games. But for part 2 of this video, we will take the 6700XT out and just completely rule it out as being faulty. But this kind of blows with the 6700XT not working and me not able to fully test this game when it was running or it was working. You know, I was getting 90 to 100 FPS in Assassin's Creed at very high or ultra settings. Call of Duty was over 140, 150 FPS at 1080p. So the graphics card was working up to a point, and then after not changing anything, it simply just stopped, and I was able to repeat, you know, the results of having that green screen, not like a G side, but just a complete flash of green and then a reboot. I never had an NVIDIA graphics card do this. This isn't a compare and contrast, but I just want to put out there, I never had an NVIDIA graphics card do that to me. But going back to the question of should you buy a pre-built gaming PC in 2025, it is an efficient, if not cost-effective, time-saving, path to getting into PC gaming, without a doubt. But building your system from start to finish could save you time and money, and also give you familiarity with your system should you have the need to say, should you have the need to fix it yourself or make your own upgrades. But regardless of the path you choose to find your way on the platform or elevate your gaming experience to a higher plateau, it starts with your specific PC gaming needs and your targeted gaming experience. If you upgrade around your needs, then your system, your overall setup will serve you well. But stick around definitely for part 2 as we take out this MSI MEC2X, the 6700XT, and replace it with the RTX 4070 Super and run more tests on that system, simply because I need to get this setup up to the streaming setup so we can get back to live streaming. So if you haven't yet, hit the like button for me on your way out or in of this video. And if you're new to the community, if you're new to the Super Meta Tech community, consider subscribing down below with the notification bell turned on so you can receive more content updates in the future. But that's all I got for this one, y'all. I do hope to catch you on the next one. So until then, be easy.